Everyone, I hope you're having an amazing day. Welcome to another episode of Platform App Builder Certification Series. So today we're going to talk about leads. Now, you might wonder, you might have heard about the term leads, or you might have heard about the terms accounts. You might have heard about the terms contacts, right? So lead, think about a scenario, right? Let me explain you what lead is all about first, then we go to other stuff. Think about a scenario, right? You are an owner of a company. Like in our case, this is a brewing industry, right? So this org is all about beer brewing or other alcohol brewing. So think about a scenario. You are the CEO of a company. You go for an Oktoberfest in Germany, right? For a holiday, whatever reason, right? And then you happen to meet someone there who runs, say, 5, 6 bars or pubs, whatever you say, in Frankfurt and Munich and other parts of Germany, right? So, and you happen to have a conversation with him and you tell him that, look, I run a brewing company in New Zealand and we make craft beers, we make different styles of beers. And the person, let's say the person you're talking to, the CEO talks to, his name is David Muller, right? So the David Muller said, look, okay, that sounds good. Would you be keen to send me some samples, right? I know that you live in New Zealand, but I would love to try your craft beer. And if you like it, then we will think of signing with you guys, right? As a source of beer from overseas, like, because if your beer tastes great, then we will sell New Zealand beer in our bars, right? So what happened in this scenario, right? So if you pay close attention to it, David Muller got interested, right? When the CEO of Wilson Breweries approached him with his pitch, saying, "Look, we make this beer," and since he runs the pubs, right? So it makes total sense to ask CEO of Wilson Breweries to send them a sample. So, according to the CEO of Wilson Breweries, that's an opportunity. That's a lead. Means David is not a client yet, but it could be potential client, right? It may or may not be potential client. Depends, right? So that's where the lead comes in the picture, right? So lead is think about lead as something like a potential a customer who are not a customer yet, but could be a customer in the future, right? So you can get lead through, like I said, this is one of the scenario. You can get lead through personal face-to-face contact. You can get lead through your website. Let's say your marketing team, puts out a campaign out there saying, look, we are advertising, these kind of beers, right? And if you're interested for beer tasting, please register on our page. So you get the client's first name, email, sometimes phone number, right? So these are the three things we normally prefer to capture, right? So that company can follow up, send up, ask questions like what they're looking for and what's their interest, so that they can help them better to understand their needs, right? And it serves Wilson Breweries in an efficient way. Right, so that's one of the example of the leads. So the other inquiry you might get from a phone. So someone might have referred, from a word of a mouth, right? Say, what happens is that your mate might be interested in Wilson Brewery's beers. So he will say, you know what? I mean, I've been drinking these beers for like a year, and the beer tastes great. So I have this phone number. If you wanted a bulk order, please contact this number. So that's one of another, it's like a referred by a friend, right? So that's one of the thing that's one of the lead, right? So the leads can come through, through marketing campaign, through email, through your web page, through different sources, right? So these are the different scenarios I gave you before we jump into real hands-on with the leads, right? So just understand the context. It's very important that you understand what lead is all about, right? Understand from business perspective. Understand from a business, right? Where does the lead fits in, right? So this is why it's a part of a sales process, basically, right? Because you're approaching a client. Some in back in the days they used to do cold calling. Right now, some companies prefer to do even today. Some companies prefer not to do it, right? So keep this into consideration before we jump into actual hands-on. Cool. All right, I hope that's nice and clear. All right, so as I often say, this is my opening statement before I do any hands-on, right? Please have an org ready. Please register for an org if you haven't done so, right? It's easy to register. You need to go to, the Salesforce developer.salesforce.com and register it, right? I've covered so many videos talking about it, right? So I hope you will be. I mean, if to be honest with you, I mean, if you do not know how to register an org at this point of time, then I'm afraid to say you're not ready to ask for platform dev, right? You need to go back and study Salesforce a bit more and before attending this lecture, right? So I'm being very honest and blunt here, right? Because, I don't want you to have an expectation that, and think that, okay, it's okay not to do hands-on and go into the exam now. That's really, I have seen Salesforce people, I mean, it's no offense to anybody, they pretend they have so many years experience, but when you actually talk to them, it's just a disaster. And the kind of things they talk about, you even think that have they ever really worked on Salesforce platform to begin with, right? So that's why I'm saying that it's for your own good. Register for our org, do lots of hands-on, and think from a business perspective, right? Where all of these components fit together. Cool. All right. Okay. So I've registered for my org. This is my usual org, developer org. If you've been following along, you might know that this is the common org I use. Okay, so first time when you log in, it probably takes you to setup. If not, don't worry. That's a good sign. So in case if you're here, so what we have to do, we have to go to the leads, right? So there is a tic-tac-toe icon here. So you go here, and then you type leads, right? Okay, so let's talk about a scenario, right? The scenario, the one which I mentioned to you right now. Wilson Brewery CEO went to Frankfurt, right? Went to an October. So he visited Germany for an Oktoberfest, right? And Oktoberfest is very popular. I mean, if you're a beer lovers, you know what Oktoberfest is, right? So he met a guy called David Muller. David, he said his name is big name, but he said, okay, for simplicity, we keep it at David Muller, whatever. And he gave him his contact, email address, and first and last name, right? That's all the information CEO got. So what happens is that CEO decides to create a lead, and that's the advantage of Salesforce. You can log in from anywhere, right? You don't have to come back to New Zealand to do that. It's online, right? It's cloud. So once he got back to his hotel, so he decides to create a lead in the system, right? So he logged into his org, and then he said, okay, let's create a lead. Okay, so you see the Mark Wilson, that's the lead owner. Mr. Right, the first name, the last name is more important here. So, and David Muller, right, you just put and the company, say, a GB Pubs, right? That's what the name of the company, different bars, that's what it's known for. It's a fictitious, right? And the lead source, right? It's others, right? Because he met him face to face. Lead status is open, right? And annual revenue, he didn't talk anything about it. He didn't want to mention anything about it, right? He didn't give any of the information except the email. So email, he said, okay, just say david.mole@gmail.com. I mean, I don't know if there's an email like this, just so fictitious. He didn't talk about the number of employees, right? Because it's not really, most of the people, most of the time when you meet someone, right, they're not, comfortable sharing this information with a stranger, right? I mean, think about it, right? When you run a company, right, if a person walks to you, would you be comfortable saying, look, what's your, financial chart looks like, how is your, financial statement is all about for the last year, how many, what's your annual revenue? You won't be comfortable, right? I mean, let's get it straight. I mean, no matter what people pretend, 99.9% people won't be comfortable giving this information to a stranger unless they have to for whatever reason, right? So this is the information and the phone number he gave, right? So whatever, I just put a dummy phone number, right? Okay. So with the country code, right? I don't know the country code of Germany because I got no families living in Germany. I have, people living in other parts of Europe, but not in Germany though. Okay, right. So click on save. Okay, so this we have created a lead. So as you can see that, uh, you can see this pathways right at the top. This is path. But I've created this a long time ago, and most of the time you may not see it. If you wanted, you can create it. I've talked about it in a different video. If you want, we can talk about it later, right? So this is the information what we have. This is the lead record that's been created in the name of David Muller. And then what happens is, right? So we have different stages here, right? One of the sales guy will contact David Muller after we ship in a sample beers, right? 10 crates, 10 pints to Germany. And then after, that's got shipped, dispatched from New Zealand, and once it reached Germany, David Muller may or may not be interested to contact us. So what we're going to do after a month, we will have a follow-up email or a call to say, hey, I hope you received our beer samples. Could you tell me what you think about it? Are you interested? Right. So whatever thing you have, you have, and then let's say David Muller comes to you and says, look, you know what? Your beer tastes exceptionally great, right? Everyone loves it. So we would like to form an agreement with you guys to buy in bulk, right? So we decide to be a client. So that's the great news. So right now, until now, David Muller is not a contact in the system. His company is not an account. We haven't registered his company as a part of an account in Salesforce, and nor we have an opportunity, right? David Muller requests that we want 1,000 pints or 5,000 pints to be shipped to Germany, right? But to be sold in his bar. So what we're gonna happen? So one of the sales guy, just pretend you're a sales guy from Wilson Brewery, right? So you got a great news that the status of the lead has completed, right? And they agree to go with you guys, go with Wilson Brewery for future process, right? So for future beer consumption. So it's marked as a closed one. And so what we're going to happen is that now the sales guy will go and convert this lead to an account, right? So you have this option here, right? And so there's a convert button here. So you drag down. If you don't see it, and you convert, right? Now, when you convert it, right, so you can see it automatically picks up the information from your lead record. This comes from a company name, and this is your create a contact. So it's automatically an opportunity, right? It says the thing is that at times what happens, they might be interested for future, but they are happy to be a client. So in that case, you can turn off the opportunity if you want, but by default, it tells you to create an opportunity as well, right? So if you don't want, and you can also choose an existing. At times, what happens, you might, so to choose existing, right, it's very handy. You might meet a person from the same company, and let's say you hire a salesperson in an organization, right? And he goes to a certain part of the world for marketing for the beer, right? And he happens to meet a person, right, who's from XYZ company, and now he says, "Oh, look, we are interested to buy more beers from you guys." And the salesperson really don't know whether the person from the company is actually our customer or not. So that's one of the reasons why it's good to choose existing. You can choose for an account search. Sometimes if there is a GB Pubs which is already existing in Salesforce, so you don't have to create the new one, right? You need to use existing one, because otherwise it will be a incorrect data, because you're linking to a wrong account then, right? So that's one of the reasons why it's very handy. So similarly, you can do that for contacts. You can do that for opportunity as well, right? Nice and easy, right? Nothing fancy. So we're going to go with the default options. We're not going to do anything fancy here, right? You can, as I said, if you don't want opportunity, you can turn it off. But we're going to go to default option here, right? Okay. We just convert here. We'll take a, so you have been converted, so you got an account here, so you can right click and see, and right, so you can see this is your account created, voila, right, nice and easy, and the contact is linked because the contact belongs to, so now you might wonder, why do we have a test here, right? Because there is already a name called David Muller exists in the system. My data is kind of messy, so please, my apologies for that. But that being said, right, you might get a scenario, right, where you already have a David Miller. So, yeah, so if you try to go with the Salesforce route, so it default does this. Yeah. Actually, hang on a second. I just wanted to double check one thing. Okay, we're going to talk about why we have a test. I just wanted to make sure that if we have a trigger created for contact, because I've used the same org for demonstrating Platform Developer 1. So I just wanted to check whether there's a trigger behind the scene, which is pending the contact with the test. It could be possible, right? Okay, so we have the contact here, and then we have the opportunity here, right? Opportunity is very interesting. So this is opportunity. Opportunity say, look, I want a 10,000 beers to be dispatched to Germany, right? So that's one of the opportunity. So client is interested to buy more stuff from you. So it's like, think about this one more scenario, right? You have an existing client, right? So when you have an existing client, they will obviously request at times for more services, right? Like, let's say on a month of January, they requested, 5,000 beers, and on a month of, say, March, in winter time, right? Not in winter, sorry, actually. March is basically an autumn in New Zealand, so people, let's say, wanted to drink more stout, so they requested more stout and porter during the autumn time, right? And in winter time, in June, July, in New Zealand, so they're requesting more and stout. So they have more and more opportunities. So you create a new opportunity, right? We're going to talk about it in details in our next lecture. Just keep into consideration, right? So that's okay. So this is pretty much I wanted to talk about today. But that being said, let's look at the contact object to see if there's a trigger, right? Okay, so now go to leads. So what happens is that it converted the leads, right? So all the leads, once it get converted, it disappears from the lead object, right? It goes behind the scene, but you can't really access it. So it converted to account because there's no point, right, sitting there, because you can go and reconvert it again. So that's disastrous. So that can lead to faulty data. It's a data integrity issue then, right? So you need to make sure that. So that's why the Salesforce, do cool stuff behind the scene. You have a lead object, converted lead objects. It's invisible, right? Yeah, it goes to Salesforce table on the scene, so. Probably you can access it. Yeah, but let's not talk about it. So to keep it simple, nice and easy, what we have done, we created a lead, right, based on the interaction CEO of Wilson Brewery had with David Muller, created a lead, and the David Muller, after he received the sample beers, decides to be our client, right? So we converted the lead to contact, account, and opportunity. Opportunities like when they request for more beers, right? Every time they request for, you create a new opportunity. Okay, sounds good, right? So let's go to a contact record. So any contact record. So let's have a look, right? Because I just wanted to check edit page. So this is a bit off topic because I wanted to see if there's a trigger linked to this contact. So if you're a admin, right? If you're my apologies if you're hearing rain. It's been raining since morning. It's a typical last leg of winter in New Zealand. So it's rain, rain, rain. Spring is going to start, whereas in the rest of the world, in Northern Hemisphere, it might be other way around, right? Where you have a winter. It's about to start the winter, right? You might be in the autumn now. We are going to spring from next month. Well, in record. That's called. Okay. Anyways, so we go to here. So what I was saying was that if you see some kind of behavior like this, right? If you're an admin, you should know the where to go and check, right? So you go to triggers here. Right, let's look at it, what it is. Right, so this is what caused the problem, right? So that's why I wonder, right, when I have created a David Muller, why appended with the test? Because there's already a trigger in place. I might have done this when I was doing platform developer, so my apologies. Right, so that's why if you're an admin, I insist, if you're an admin, if you get this behavior, it's your responsibility to go and check. I mean, I've seen a lot of admins, right? They say, oh, we can't understand the code. Well, that's not good enough, right? I mean, if you don't, no one asks you to code it, but at least you need to know where to go and look at it, right? That's very important. I mean, no one expects an admin to write a code, but at least they know where to look for it. So this is one of the places to look for it, right? I came from a .NET background and other programming language. I mean, when I came to Salesforce for the first time, right? I find this platform very interesting because everything is very stable and you can do code on a cloud, which is like amazing stuff, right? Because obviously most of the clouds or most of the services runs on top of AWS, and I'm a bit biased towards AWS because I love AWS, right? That's one of the cloud technology I've learned when I wanted to learn the cloud technology. So that's what I mean, and we do Azure as well at times. So yeah, and I've seen admins who are not comfortable when they talk about the code, they just backs it up. I like, wow, it's not a rocket science, it's just a basic Apex code, right? Anyone can learn it. I'm not saying because I'm a developer, I have been coding for years, but I mean, and then I met developers who said they can code and they have no freaking idea about anything about the code. I mean, this is just hilarious at times. But anyways, I'm not ranting. I'm just telling based on experience about people I've met. It's just, all right, okay. So that's all I wanted to talk about it today, right? So I gave you a scenario where you can create a lead, and I also gave you a scenario where contact can, names get changed. So you need to be very careful about the things you write behind the scene. If something like that happened, you need to first thing go and check for the trigger, right? All right, okay. That's all I wanted to talk about today. Thank you very much for attending. Greetings and adios from New Zealand. Bye-bye.